Hey guys, what's going on? Today we're going to talk about putting backing on your baitcasters and your spinning reels. I put a video out maybe a year or two ago on this subject here, and since then I've had a lot of questions, especially recently, just because it's about time to start spooling up your reels. So hopefully this video can answer your guys' questions and you guys can get to spooling up your reels and head to the lake. So first up, the question I get asked the most is why I put backing on my reels, and the main reason is line these days is so expensive. Here's a great example. Cigar Tatsu 15-pound test, 200 yards, about 45 bucks. So if you were just to tie this directly to your spool, spool it up, you're only going to get, one reel for $45. I got a lot of reels to spool up. I don't know about you guys. No way I can afford to spend 45 bucks to spool up one reel. I put a lot of thought into what I'm going to do with the reel before I even spool it up, so I can get the most out of my main line. A good example is the Tatsu 20-pound. Okay, 200 yards. Reels these days, 12-pound test, a reel will hold anywhere from 120 to maybe 150 yards, again, depending on the reel. If you were to tie this to your spool, spool it up, since it's a thicker or a bigger diameter, you'll probably get 2 reels spooled up for about 45, 50 bucks. That's what this costs. Okay, my plan is to only pitch and flip jigs with this 20-pound test. I don't need a lot of line on the reel for that, or a lot of main line at least. 50 yards is probably what I'm going to put on of this line to pitch and flip jigs with, but I still need filler below that line, and that's your backing. So like I said, I'm going to put on 50 yards, so I need backing below that. Okay, yes, it's expensive, but if you use backing, you can get more reels spooled up, with one filler spool. So instead of just maybe getting 1 or 2 reels, if I'm only going to put on 50 yards, just because I'm only going to pitch and flip with it, I can spool up 4 reels with this. So yeah, it's expensive, but if you do it that way, it doesn't seem so bad. So again, that's my plan with it, and that changes. If you're going to deep crank, you're going to want a lot more main line. If you're going to be throwing rattle traps, bait that you can just bomb out there, of course you want more line. But if you're just going to pitch and flip, with this expensive line, there's no reason to spool up your entire reel with it, because what's below that 50 yards is just filler. It's just waste. You just need something to take up the space till you get to your main line. So I like to use Bass Pro Shops 10-pound mono for filler. For backing, it's cheap line. You get 1,500 yards for like $9. I can use this spool here for a couple years to back on my reel. So that's what I use. Alright, next question was, do I back spinning reels? Of course, I back all my reels, all my bait casters, all my spinning reels. This is a really nice looking spinning reel here from Okuma. Shout out to them, they did a really nice job on this reel here. This is the RTX 30. I love the red accents on this reel. Super smooth. Hopefully it performs as good as it looks. I'll be taking this guy out about a month or so. I'll let you guys know how it handles. I plan on doing a rod review as well for Okuma. It's the 7'2" TCS drop shot rod. I'll be pairing it up with this reel here, and we'll see how it does. But get back to the line. This holds, let's see here, 4-pound test, 355 yards. I don't know about you guys, but I cannot cast that far. 6-pound test, 225 yards, 8-pound test, 175 yards. Okay, I'll probably put InvisX on there. A spool of InvisX costs anywhere from 16 to 20 bucks. On this reel, I'll probably put at least maybe 80 to 100 yards of main line. So let's say I go with 6-pound test. I put 100 yards of InvisX on there. I need 125 yards of backing. Okay, I would rather use backing and get 2 reels out of one spool versus just the one. So of course, I always back my spinning reels. Alright, next question is, this is going to be the most confusing, is how do I figure out how much backing I'm putting on? Of course, you can see how many inches per turn your reel brings in. You can figure it out that way. That will change as line comes on the spool, but you can do it that way. What I do is, anytime I get a new reel, I spool it up with 12-pound test, Bass Pro Mono. Again, it's a good line, but it's a cheaper line that you can kind of experiment with. On average, like I said, I use 60% main line, 40% backing. And on average, 75, 80 yards is what I usually put mostly on my reels. Okay, give or take. Like I said, if I'm deep cranking, I'll put more. If I'm just pitching and flipping, I'll put less. Average, 75, 80 yards. So like I said, I'll spool up one reel with 12-pound test. Now my yard was 150 foot deep, that's 50 yards. So I'd fill my reel all the way up. I'd go set the reel at the end of the yard, I'd grab the line and walk it all the way out. Okay, that's 50 yards. I'd go back to the reel, I'd grab the line again, I'd go halfway. That's 75 yards, okay? So I've pulled out 75 yards of line. if you go to the reel, okay, the distance from the top of the spool to the line that's left on there, that distance represents 75 yards. So you can use a piece of cardboard, you can take a measurement. I use these little gauge blocks. I used to be really into woodworking. These are just little gauge blocks or a router. And this one here worked for most of my reels. This one is a 1/4 inch, okay? So if I were to lay this gauge block on the line that was left on the reel, it would be even with the top of the spool. So this gauge block represents 75 yards of line for that diameter. Okay, that's going to change when you change brands and diameter and all that. Okay, so keep that in mind. But the 12-pound test is what I would use kind of like a gauge. You know, when I would look at the diameter of the 12-pound test, I would just compare that to different brands. You know, if I'm going to compare it to Seagar, Seagar's diameter is a lot smaller. So if I wanted to use that gauge block, okay, once I'm spooling up my backing and I know the diameter of this is smaller, once I get to the top of the spool with my gauge block, I'll take the gauge block off and I'll spool up a little more line just to make up for the smaller diameter. Now if you're going to use 20-pound test, of course that's a bigger diameter than 12-pound mono, so you're going to want to go a little less. Okay, you want to use a bigger gauge block, that way there's more room for main line and less backing. It sounds complicated, it's really not. If you really think about it, you know, it really does make sense. It's an easy way to figure it out. And once you figure out one like that, it's just real easy to do them all. And like I said, when I'm spooling up a reel, again, I showed this in my other video. I'll put that link in the description below. But I just tie my backing to my reel. I start spooling it up every so often. I'll lay this on the line. And whenever it becomes even with the top of the spool, I know I'm ready to tie on my main line. So, like I said, I'll put that other video in the description below. You guys can watch that. It should explain it a little bit more. But that's how I do it. So, guys, hopefully this video has answered some of your questions. And if you have any more, feel free to leave those in the comments. If you guys are looking for a really nice spinning reel, definitely check out Okuma. Again, I'm really excited to try this out. And definitely try out that rod, the 7.2 TCS drop shot rod. So stay tuned for that review. But guys, again, hope you guys enjoyed the video and hopefully it helps you guys out. If it did, please give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.